Welcome back to another meeting of Diverse Minds with Keisha Hamilton. It is Wednesday, March 30th, 2020, and I am super excited to have Layton Price here. Here on a meeting of Diverse Minds, we are talking historically authentic racial equity engagement, and we have Layton Price, who's here with us from, let's see, he's the Talent and Development Director at the Ruth Ellis Center. Yay! Thank you so much, Layton, for joining me for another meeting of Diverse Minds. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing amazing, Keisha. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this conversation. I've been watching this show since you started it, and it's been a pleasure just being part of the audience. And so I'm glad to be able to speak to you directly. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. That makes my heart feel warm and fuzzy. That somebody found it interesting enough to watch it for a while. I think we've been at it for like about a year, a little over a year now. A little over a year. It's some good conversations. I found that for one, and we're going to talk about this, because you and we've had some conversations offline just about how we got into this work. But I found that did you see? Oh, you can't see the if you're on Facebook and you want to share it from the page, go right ahead. There's already some comments coming in for you. Already some comments coming in for you. But I've definitely found that during this last year that I've done this, how necessary it is for us to just be having these conversations, for individuals to be able to listen in. I have so many people who listen in, and are, come back and ask more questions. And I'm just like, I'm so glad that someone suggested to me that, hey, look, you're constantly talking about this all day, all night. Why don't you're constantly reading about it, studying about it, living this life. Start talking about it, so you can stop talking to me. I'm not gonna talk about who said that. I'm not gonna talk about who, but that was kind of like how it evolved. But I do find a lot of almost therapy in having these discussions and, and kind of sharing information. It's almost therapeutic for me, for us to be able to have these conversations. So I am glad that we have a meeting of diverse minds. You know what I mean? All right, Layton. So I want our audience to be able to know who you are. They have heard from me for about a year, and it was very important to me that during 2022, we got to bring in some other DEI experts, strategists, transformational leaders onto the show so that we can kind of, have the actual meeting on the show of these minds. So tell us a little bit about yourself and, what you do at the Ruth Ellis Center.
Cool. Yeah, so I'll try to keep it brief. I do a lot of different things. And at the Ruth Ellis Center, I'll first start with sharing what Ruth Ellis Center is. So Ruth Ellis Center is a nonprofit that is based in Highland Park, Michigan. And Ruth Ellis Center is actually, again, this nonprofit that's named after a historical figure. And her name was Ruth Ellis. And she was a resident of Detroit who was a business owner and had started to take in and care for and provide for lesbian, gay, transgender, bisexual, and questioning youth. And so, that's who we named after. We have been in business for over 20 years, and we are growing. And I'm the Talent Development Director. And so what I do there, I oversee the HR department, and I help drive and champion the equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives organization-wide. I do a lot of initiatives to really support the workplace as well as the programs that we deliver. And just to kind of give you an overview of what programs we offer case management for housing. We also have a permanent supportive housing apartment complex that's actually under construction this very moment, and it's slated to open this summer. And it's going to be 43 units, and it's designed to support the unique needs of the LGBTQ young folks who we serve. So we're very excited about that. This is a new initiative, and we're really excited to help meet the needs of folks who are experiencing homelessness. We also have a behavioral health and wellness clinic where folks can, access services there. We have a drop-in center. We have a food pantry. We have a clothing closet. We also have workforce development programs, and I help lead the workforce development programming as well. So with that said, we got a lot to do. It's really, truly, amazing to be a part of an organization that has such a rich legacy and has a huge impact on the community with the most vulnerable folks that are served in Detroit. And they are primarily Black and Brown young people.
Wow. Okay. Wow. I love the first part. One of the descriptions that you gave us, or, as far as in your work, you said you oversee the HR department. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah. So we have a team of 2 in the department.
Yeah.
Our organization is not huge. We have a staff of about 50-ish folks.
Okay. Wow.
And so I am the director who supervises our HR manager. And yeah, so we just do what we do and really try to needs, especially during the time of COVID.
Yeah.
I started in my role right at a very interesting time. It was in the middle of 2020.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I immediately jumped into action and was like, if I can even really understand what I need to do here, I need to first address a lot of the needs that are surfacing related to COVID-19.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I asked that too, because, so thank you so much for your work. Because a lot of times that community specifically, aside from us just being Black and Brown individuals, who oftentimes are, very oftentimes are kind of, obviously marginalized and just kind of left out. Our LGBTQ and trans community, they are even more, marginalized. And so thank you so much for, I'm grateful for the Ruth Ellis Center, her focus, and then having individuals like yourself who are so passionate about it, and focused on getting the work done. I think about you were saying, as far as the DEI, one of your main focuses is in DEI, and yet it's not under HR, it's over HR at the Ruth Ellis Center. That's the direction, I believe, in the hierarchy that DEI needs to go in any organization. You know what I mean? Oftentimes DEI and HR are the antithesis of each other. I think that's the right word. I always pronounce it wrong, but they're the direct opposite of each other. They're like fighting brothers and sisters, of each other. You know what I mean? I actually happened to be having this conversation with one of my supervisors a couple of days ago, and we were just kind of strategizing about DEI where I work at. And I mentioned to him, I said, oftentimes HR is in place supposedly to be a support to employees, but realistically, it is really designed to uphold the organization. It's really designed to protect the organization. Whereas DEI, in my opinion, and the work that we do in that space is so people focused and people centered that it's more designed around protection of people and the employees themselves. So in actuality, DEI should never be under HR. If anything, it should be neck and neck, but ideally it should be above it. So I'm super excited about just that hierarchy, the way it's been designed at Ruth Ellis Center. I love that.
Yeah, and I've been the first person to hold such a position there at the Ruth Ellis Center.
Yeah.
So I'm just very grateful for the opportunity to do that, to lead the work, to actually demonstrate that this can be done. It can happen together.
Yes. Yes. I love that. You might even be the first in any organization that, for her to recognize, that organization to recognize that this is where we place DEI management. This is where we place DEI directors. It should never be under HR, because it's always, if it's got to answer to HR, then it's got to fit within HR, guidelines and practices, whereas and HR is designed really and realistically to protect the organization, and it's not really there for the employees, and so it just doesn't work in that that chain, or you know what I mean. So wow, they're leading the way in this, you know what I mean.
I appreciate awesome. That reminder, because I've been in my role for 2 years, and I'm just going along with it. And having this conversation is, again, a reminder that what we're doing is, innovative. And it's really groundbreaking. And also a reminder to me as to why some folks might feel distrust or mistrust for, those of us who are in HR at Ruth Ellis Center,
Yeah.
especially folks who are being onboarded or new to the organization and haven't had the opportunity to truly experience just that culmination of like embedding DEI
Yes.
right at the
Yes.
door. And
Yes.
then you learn a lot more about our HR practices and policies.
Yeah.
So, just again, it's another reminder for me to just be patient and
Yeah.
continue to, allow folks to experience that transition from a
Yeah.
traditional HR experience into what we
Yes.
offer at REC.
Yes, it's crazy that would be innovative, but in actuality, it is. One of the things I've, just when you said that is as far as embedding it at the very beginning, one of the things that I really appreciate about my own place of work is that part of their training team. And so we just created our training team about, I guess about a year ago or so. And I was fortunate to be able to come along and be a part of that team. And part of that process that they were, recreating was embedding, anti-racism. And I'm so proud of my job because I'm just like, we get to say anti-racism. We get to say it. We don't just say DEI, diversity, equity. No, we get to say anti-racism. And it just feels so good to have, I can't breathe. Oh my God, but anyway, so we do that right at the HR. As soon as the individuals are coming in, their orientation includes, a very extensive history of our organization, but then how it relates to DEI and why it's important to us and why it's important to the people that we serve. And it just really feels good to be able to work for someplace like that. So I kind of can feel at least that much, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of amazing.
Yeah. And it is a relief to be able to use certain words that have been prohibited in the past.
Yeah.
Like the word race.
Yes, yes.
Or white or black, like super basic words that we have been, banned from using, but now we can actually speak on those things. And I think it's important to name things. If we're not naming what is happening, then how can we ever address things that are bothersome or oppressive, or repeating the things that we're here to even address in the first place? Because I work in human services or a social service organization. So a lot of the things that we're there to support the community around are related to race, period.
Yes. Yes, like period. And if you can't name it, how can you address something that you can't name? If you can't, bring awareness around it, how can you ever, change it? How can you transform it? So how, for one, we talked about, I was super excited when we got to talk before, when we first kind of just met each other, just talking about our journeys into DEI. How do you feel about just sharing a little bit of your journey into DEI?
I can talk about that for about 3 hours, and I know we don't have today. So I'll give you the short version watching. I believe I've been doing diversity, equity, and inclusion work with a focus on anti-racism my whole entire 20 years in this field. And I didn't know that that's what I was doing.
Right.
The terms were not what drove me to this work. It was the work that drove me to the work. Yes. And then later on, I discovered that there's terms and phrases and definitions, models and frameworks. And it's like, okay, all that's cool. And I'll incorporate that into the language. And as I'm communicating with people, I'll use these terms, but I believe in equity work, period. I started out volunteer as soon as I graduated high school. I met someone who is an executive director at a women's shelter at the time. They serve women and children. And I come from a background where I was raised primarily by my mother, and we experienced some homelessness, and I moved around a lot. I went to 15 different Detroit public schools. And so as anyone can imagine, my education experience was disrupted. It was traumatic, I'm gonna be honest, and it was difficult for me to keep up. However, I graduated on time, and as soon as I graduated in December, I met this individual, and she, was like, hey, you want to help out with, some things that I got going on? I'm like, sure. So next thing you know, I became like a one-off volunteer. Then I started to volunteer every week, and I'm like, I'm loving this. This is feeling really good to my soul, and I'm really, feeling good about helping people who experience a lot of the things that I experience, like domestic violence, substance use, and all the other things. And so at 18, I knew like, I want to do this more often, but I didn't know exactly how. And then so over time, I, decided that I would continue to volunteer and continue to, take advantage of opportunities that was presented to me. And then one day it occurred to me, after working 6 years as a security guard, I'm like, wait a minute. So you're spending a lot of your time volunteering, and then you're coming back to the security job to make your living. How about you find a way to like really earn a living and do this work at the same time and still volunteer as needed?
Yeah.
And so I went to school and talked to an advisor, and this is the funny part. So I'm like, hey, I'm a first generation high school graduate, first of all.
Wow.
So sitting here in this seat talking to you about academics beyond high school is something that I'm intimidated by. So can you help me out?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Put it on the table. I said, I want to work with people. I heard about social work. I don't really know what that means. And so they told me, well, we don't offer social work, but we offer human services. And then I also kept expressing a desire to work with people in a workplace and to support people with, financial empowerment. And so they said, you sound like you might, gravitate toward human resources, but I would encourage you to go the human service route. And then in the future, if you decide to pivot, your human resources skills are probably a lot more transferable into human resources.
Okay.
That is exactly what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
So I'm in a role where I have been able to combine my desire to support financial empowerment for families who are experiencing financial hardship in underserved communities.
Yeah.
And all of my human service background and experience to do that.
Wow.
So I just think it's amazing that full circle after all these years of me really doing the work and actually being able to like put the pieces together and it makes sense.
Yeah. I love that. I love human services, just the term human services. I kind of happened upon just a little phrase that I kind of have, adopted for myself and that's community servant, and it's just, it makes me feel like, it just makes me feel like I'm doing what I want to do, and that is serve people, and these humans, because they are, when we're talking about human service, DEI is just everything to that. It's the, when we're pushing for diversity and equity and inclusion and anti-racism, it's because we recognize that these are humans, these are individual people with individual needs, that they shouldn't all be clumped together, and serving them in that way, to meet their needs, that it's just important in that way. So I even love just, human services, and then even your route for it, just knowing or learning, 15 different schools, that's a lot, that could be really traumatic, 2 or 3 schools could be.
And guess what? When it comes to all of those different schools that I attended, Keisha, do you know that I earned a college scholarship and I didn't even know how to apply it?
Wow.
When I graduated high school, I graduated with like a 1 point something GPA.
Okay.
However, I received what at the time was called a compact scholarship.
Okay.
And I was able to, I basically scored above average on state standardized tests as a high school student.
Wow.
That's how I got a scholarship. But because the school system failed me, I didn't apply it because I guess they assumed that I would have known how to access my scholarship.
Wow.
I guess they thought I had a family who was in higher ed, was able to walk me through that process. That was not my circumstance. And it didn't occur to me until years after I graduated high school that my scholarship had expired and I was not able to access it once I was able to kind of put the pieces together on my own plate. And so that is experience that I have personally that drives me to do this work. Because that is horrible for anybody
to have a whole scholarship and not know how to apply it, not even know the beginning steps of looking into it, accessing it, talking about it, just nothing, you know what I mean? This is why we do the work that we do, because there are so many stories just like this or similar to different resources. I think that's one of the biggest, or one of the things that really, really, ticks me off when it comes to, resources and things that are available, and how our society kind of just hides stuff, you know what I mean? By just kind of being omissive, they just omit it. So they might not feel like they're hiding it, but not making it well known, and, and kind of putting it out there, and focusing on the fact that this is an individual person with a personalized need who this might work for. But because you as this person, you have no idea what's available to you, and they're not telling you, so many of us, fall and falter and miss out on different opportunities because of that. You know what I mean? And I know that that's a part of the work that we do, in DEI and anti-racism. It's one, opening up those resources for all. It's making it all plain. It's taking those clubs away. You know what I mean? Like this special little club over here. Nope, we're opening the doors. We want everybody to see what you're doing, how you're doing it, how you're getting over, how you're getting through, how you're getting along, so that they can too. You know what I mean? This world is big enough for us all to be able to be successful, and, and to be resourced, well resourced. You know what I mean? I know that's a different parts of, why I do DEI work as well. You know what I mean? And I think too, I love even how you mentioned getting into it was not, you've been doing this. This is you. This is not like, oh, they have a DEI job, I think I'll apply for it, and now I'm about to. No, this is just what you've been doing. I told different people, even with myself, I said, DEI was affirmative action 40, 50 years ago. You know what I mean? It was the, it's the civil rights, before that. It's, you know what I mean? It's the Emancipation Proclamation, and it's been here. It's just now we just have these new terms. You know what I mean? Sometimes I get irritated with the terms, because I'm just like, okay, this is just another way for us to kind of make it exclusive. You know what I mean? Do you have this type of certificate? Do you have that type of degree? Like, look here now. I think you want to say something on that. I want to hear it too.
You just touched the nerve. Because as I was sharing with someone else a couple of days ago, like, as someone who's been doing this work for 20 years, and again, I'm still learning, I'm still growing.
Yeah.
I want to spread impact. I want to continue to move this work as far as I can during my time.
Yes.
But to see that they're posting a lot of these jobs, equity officers, equity, director, and the job description itself, the job posting itself, didn't appear to include any equity lens when it was written.
Yes.
And I'm like, who's writing job descriptions?
Yes.
Who's doing the search? Did you all consult anybody?
Yes.
And then there's this new trend. Folks are asking for a diversity certificate.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yes. Yes.
And again, no disrespect to anybody that, has them. I'm going to get me one as well.
Right. It's
I got to keep up with the Joneses.
Right.
Do what I can do. But at the end of the day, I still have questions. It's like the people who are making money off of these certificates, are they people of color?
Yes.
Are they people who are from marginalized communities? Have these programs been vetted by marginalized communities?
Yes.
Those are the questions before I just run out and go and grab me a certificate. That's why you hit a nerve.
Yes. I love that. Even just what you're mentioning, as far as, these certificates that individuals are getting, who are they? Who's creating them? You know what I mean? And what proof do you have that this is actually beneficial, that it actually works? And then what does it works even look like? You know what I mean? So some of your and so that kind of takes me into some of the titles that you have on LinkedIn that I absolutely love. You know what I mean? I love DEI strategist. We've got DEI strategist, transformational leader and trainer, advocate, intersectional community engagement specialist are some of the titles that you use to describe yourself on LinkedIn, which, like I said, I love them because they're so important and foundational to the work of DEI and anti-racism. So we talk about strategists, you know what I mean? How are these, certificates that individuals are getting, when they get them and they come into your organization, what does that look like for a strategist? You know what I mean? What strategy are they providing that is transformational. So let's talk a little bit about just what transformational, what does that look like when it comes to DEI anti-racism, the work?
That is a loaded question.
Yeah.
And talk about what I believe that looks like. But what I'll say is that I think we have a long way to go in many places. Even in my current workplace, you know, we're doing really, really great work. Things do not change overnight, especially things we have inherited.
Yes.
Inherited hundreds of years.
Yes.
Of oppression.
Yes.
White supremacy culture.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And so it can change overnight. And I believe that it takes a commitment from every single individual, Black, brown, and otherwise, to recognize how we are feeding into this system, how we are perpetuating oppression.
Yeah.
And once we are able to look in the mirror and be able to recognize our implicit and explicit biases, what microaggressions we're using, what just all of the things that we need to do within our own lives to deconstruct these oppressive behaviors and systems, then I think we will get to a point where we see transformative change. I think it starts with the individual. And 100%. That is one of the hardest things about doing this work is that it's difficult to help people understand the benefits to them playing a role in addressing the work, unless there is a school shooting or somebody got killed by the cops or some type of emotional response to something.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to wait until there's another headline to do this work. I believe the bystander effect and groupthink, those issues, those types of things that we are living with are things that need to change too. So how do we as individuals disrupt our own contribution to those harmful cycles? And then once we address that, then I think we can come to the table and talk about what actions need to take place within policies, procedures, and practice. And then to hold ourselves accountable. You know, they say it takes 21 days to break a habit and 90 days to, you know, develop a new lifestyle. And so if we can actually identify what needs to change, how we can apply some new actions to try to change them and evaluate those things, see how they're going. Things are not going to be perfect. But again, a lot of people are afraid to even try something different. So if we are afraid to try something different, then what will ever change? Yeah,
I love that. A couple of things you said, just how difficult, what makes the work so difficult is the fact that it's a very personal experience. It's a very personal journey that has to be taken. You know, that each individual has to take that journey on their own. You know what I mean? They have to, and that's the hard part as well, because individuals have to understand why it's even important to take the journey. You know, so we're talking about these individuals, you know, just to kind of get back to that, but I want to come back to this as well, but get back to, you know, individuals getting these certificates and coming in to work jobs as the DEI officer, and they haven't done their own personal work, which is how we don't get to any type of transformation, because they don't see, you can't change what you currently are kind of holding on to, and that you don't even recognize. You don't even acknowledge. You haven't acknowledged that, you know what, I have not begun deconstruction. I'm not comfortable saying white supremacy. I'm not, you know, I don't recognize how every action that I take, you know, in my personal life, in my professional life, is impacting, you know, keeping these systems in place. You know, so we have these individuals getting certificates like that, coming into organizations to work these positions, you know, with supervisors and managers who also have not taken that, you know, have not taken that journey. You know what I mean? So we have that as an issue. But then we also have just the issue, if you say you've taken that journey. And I love that, you know, you even mentioned, you know, just individually, us as those who champion this work, we are ever learning, you know what I mean? Ever learning, you know, making mistakes, realizing, oh, I shouldn't have, or I could have, or I should have maybe, or, you know, just all these, or I have new knowledge that I need to apply that, you know, so we're ever learning. But then even in that, you know, us as ever learning, you know, trying to help other people, you know, who don't want to come along on this process, you know, you know what I mean, who are not, you know, so when we're talking transformation, 100% I agree with you. It's necessary. It's what has to occur for there to be actual change. I mean, it's what we'll see when actual change has occurred. It'll be transformed, but that is a process. It's not overnight. You know what I mean? It's not, you know, it's not a 5-year. It's not a, you know, I went to an erase training. I absolutely love the erase and tell everybody go through their training, but it's not going through a 2-day erase training or however long it is. You know, it's not a college course. It's not a 4-year degree. You know what I mean? Even, you know what I mean? Especially when you're steeped in it, and I think even more specifically for white people as well, because they don't have any reason. Most of them they didn't live a Black life. They don't know the fear of cops. They don't know, you know, they don't know discrimination. They don't know walking into a place, never seeing themselves, you know, in a good light or ever even seeing them. They don't know that life, you know, so for them to even get certificates and then attempt to try to operate within it, or even try to oversee, you know, which is why I love that your DEI department is over HR. You know what I mean? So many of our HR professionals are generally, you know, a lot of white women, a lot of times, you know what I mean, who have not done the work. And for them to be the supervisors of a DEI specialist, it's like, oh my God, okay. We are in the wrong situation.
It hurt. And you know, and you asked me about my background and how did I get into, you know, this equity work, and it became very, very, very clear to me, like, oh, okay, so you need to like really identify with anti-racism work, because all my years I've been, you know, identifying as like a social justice person, an advocate, a human services professional, but it's like, no. Also, person that believes in anti-racism, and I need that to be understood, because I'm going to talk about it, because every single day my race matters. Every day, every time I walk into a room, I'm on a college campus right now, and I saw a person who walked past me, and you know, I don't know what their ethnic background is, but they were white passing, and they also had a couple kids with them. And they clutched their purse, didn't even look at me in the eye. I'm holding the door open, you know, just trying to be a nice person.
Right.
And I'm like, you are teaching your children how to treat Black men when they see them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're probably an individual who will claim to not be racist. However, your actions are being transferred onto your children right now. So how many days do you go through life treating people differently and didn't even say a word, but your children are watching? So how is this stuff still existing? It's through those behaviors, those things that people are doing. And I love talking about that type of stuff, because those are the things that are missed, especially by our well-meaning white counterparts who identify as being allies. When they do that stuff, I love pointing that stuff out and say, well, I know you are down for the cause, and I know you are committed. However, what you just did, was hard.
Yes. So, and it's very interesting, the number of conversations that we have to have, you know, with our, you know, so we're grateful, you know, because we cannot do this work alone. You know what I mean? You know, Black, brown, you know, whatever, we have to have our white brothers and sisters who will come along with us, you know, to do this work. We have to do it together. You know what I mean? It's the period. But we do have to have a lot of conversations with them, to say, hey, look, you know, let's sit down and kind of unpack what just occurred. You know, sometimes I'm like, you know, I've said enough, and now Google. Now go Google if you really care.
It's exhausting, because now I have to after having this conversation with you, which was not on my calendar to do, I
Right.
didn't put that in my calendar to have this conversation.
Yes.
So now I had to fit that into my time to do that.
Yes.
Now I have to fit how I'm going to mentally transition into this next assignment that I have. I got a whole policy that I need to write.
Yes.
But my brain is still impacted by this harmful incident that occurred.
Yes.
And what about, I mean, people like me who are, again, leading this work and is tasked with the responsibility to have these difficult conversations? Well, do I get any extra time off? No, I don't.
Yes.
Extra compensation for the additional emotional labor? No, I don't.
Yes.
Those are the types of things that I think needs to be thought about when we are hiring equity leaders.
Yes.
You know, and then thinking about one example that I give when it comes to like those of us who say we're committed, even our white allies, what are you willing to give up?
Yes.
Tell me you're an ally just to save face or to, you know, gain my, I don't know, kindness and friendship, because I'm not here to be a friend. I do want to coexist.
That
and
part.
if friendship, fine. Me being pro-Black doesn't mean that I'm anti-white. And so I need to be able to have conversation. And once we can get through that, then I need to know what you're willing to give up.
Yes.
So one of the things that I do in my job is, you know, I do pay equity analysis. And so I'm looking at different pay ranges and, you know, I'm looking at who's making what and who's not making what.
Right. Right.
About lifting the minimum wage at our, you know, place of employment. We're having conversations about like, okay, so when we increase this minimum wage from $12 up to maybe about $15 to $16, $17,
right,
how would the people feel who are not going to get an increase, who are already making top dollar? They're going to feel left out. They're going to feel like it's not fair because they're not also getting a raise because of that. But that's not what equity is. Equity is lifting the people who need that extra bump, because there are things that have some barriers that they face every day, which have led them to being left out. We want to address, you're not going to get something this time. How do you feel about that? Are you still down for the call?
Right.
Knowing that they're going to get you, or if they get extra PTO because they're frontline staff and they have an interesting set of duties that cause a lot of burnout. And
I love that.
They need a certain set of benefits to, you know, address their particular needs. So those are the types of things we talk about in my job.
Yeah, that's actual. That's the actual equity work. That is the, you know, because equity, I love to say equity is not fair. And I absolutely love that question. What are you willing to give up? And that, you know, I had a person today I was talking to, and they're like, so Keisha might be abrupt, you know. And I was like, I said, maybe, you know, but I'm like, how long do I have to? I mean, we've been talking about this, you know, civil rights movement, you know, Reconstruction era, you know, I mean, and I know I'm a little backwards on those, but, you know, affirmative action. Now we here at the DEI, like we've been talking about this for so many years, and I'm only, you know, 40, almost 41, you know, only, you know, but of my 40 years of living here, you know what I mean? You know, I remember in elementary recognizing different ways that different people, you know, were being treated. You know what I mean? I recognize the difference in how I was treated. I recognize the mostly, you know, white staff around me. And I recognize how that made me feel. I recognized how that made me shrink. You know what I mean? So I don't have a lot of time to, and then we're having these conversations and we're saying, look, okay, it actually is black and white. You know, you said something that hurt me, and this is why it hurt me. And now I need you to understand that it hurt me. And I need you to not try to do that again. And then but we can't stop there. Now is, but why did it, and how did it, and you know, and but it doesn't make me feel that, you know, okay, so it's a lot of emotional labor for us, a lot of work. And I'm grateful. I do some volunteering in some different groups, and one of the groups that I volunteer in, actually on Wednesdays, we require self-care pay, you know, so we have contracts that we take on, and we write in there, we have to have self-care pay. Where a lot of us are Black women doing this work, and there's a lot of emotional energy that has to be, expended in order to do this work. So we need self-care, you know what I mean? And I think that that's also part of why when we see these job descriptions that have been written by individuals who have absolutely no idea what this work entails, no idea how to even evaluate the work, no idea how to support or resource the work, that is not included on there. And then you have individuals who are easily going to get a certificate because you're a well-resourced person, generally our white brothers and sisters who are well resourced. You have, because a lot of times people think resources as is money, but you've got your people resources, you've got your connection resources, you've got your historical legacy, your historical history, generational knowledge, that's been poured into you of how to do things. You've got your society that's been designed to support you resource. You know what I mean? So it's easy for you to go and do these things. So you come and present these certificates and then coming and supposedly coming to do work that you're very ill-equipped to do. And then we don't see transformation, you know what I mean? And then when we do, they do find individuals like yourself and myself who are ready to do this work. We've got these barriers that they place up because you want, but then also when we come in and do the work, then we also are not supported, not resourced. And I get it that they don't understand, which is why we have these conversations so we can enlighten them. You know what I mean? Self-care hours need to be there. Extra PTO hours need to be there. And equity is not fair. That's what equity is. It's not fair. It's personalized,
And I'm kind of on the fence about it not being fair. I think it is fair. I think it's not the type of fairness that people are accustomed to.
Yeah.
It does make you uncomfortable because now it challenges your social capital or the privilege that you hold.
Yes.
That's anytime you feel that tug, that's because it's that privilege that you are not able to apply in this scenario and you don't like it.
Yes. I love that. I love that. Yeah. Because it's fair to this person. You know what I mean? But a lot of people are, I fair to most people is we all get the same thing, which is actually equality. You know what I mean? But most people are I didn't get the same thing, but you didn't need it either. You know what I mean? So,
well, like I said, we all got an opportunity to take the state standardized test when I was in high school. Everybody didn't take it for different reasons. Okay, so I made it through the group that took it.
Yeah.
I scored high on it. As a result, I was, honored to receive. I was at the ceremony and everything to get my medallion and my certificate for my scholarship. Now look at me.
Yeah.
Didn't have a scholarship, didn't use it. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, that wasn't fair to me that I didn't have full access to it. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, no, fairness does not look the same across the board. And I think what people are accustomed to is entitlement.
Yes, you're right. You are so right. That's that whole scarcity abundance mindset. You know what I mean? Everybody's all, well, if you give it to them, then it's coming, you're taking it from me. And it really confuses me. I'm just like, how, if your pay is the same that it's been, and you're fully, capable of living off that pay because you have been for however long. And then, you raise the pay for myself because you need to, or individuals who look like myself and like you, so that we can actually, and then maybe the pay that we get is even higher than what you're getting, but you're still fine with your pay. How is that unfair? It's just, you shouldn't get more than me. And you're supposed to be lower than me. And it's unfortunate that, we just don't exist in a society where, being honest with ourselves is like key, or that's a thing. It's, so many people are just very uncomfortable with being honest with themselves. You know what I mean? Examining how am I, what am I, what am I doing here? How am I being actually impacted here negatively or positively? And what do I need to do to change versus, but you shouldn't, but that's not, and, we just live in a society like that. And it's unfortunate.
What's coming up for me right now is I have a lot of empathy for a lot of folks who lived through the civil rights era and who had to survive by assimilating to a lot of this, respectability politics.
Yes.
And now those same folks, and I'm not speaking about everybody, but I know that there's a large representation of people who are from that generation who are looking at people like me who's a millennial, like, what? You better take that and shut up, and you better rock in the
Right,
boat.
like, no.
And it's like,
I want more.
and it's like, no, we don't have to live like that anymore. I'm pushing back. I'm not gonna just do what they tell me to do. That didn't help your generation. It's not gonna help mine. It's not gonna help the next. Somebody has to put down and stop it. And sometimes in this work, it's those people of color who have,
say it again for the people in the back. No, let me stop.
Who have reached those accomplishments.
Yes.
They worked hard, because they jumped through all those hoops, and I feel bad that they had to do that. So then they're looking at somebody like me like, oh no, you're not coming up in here, and you better jump through the same hoops that I jumped through. And it's like, please just rest and let me pick it up from here. Like, you work hard, and I know it. And that's where I'm just like, the intergenerational piece is so important, because that's what diversity looks like. It looks like some people of color just being disengaged from the work. Some people being very engaged, and there's some people who push against the work.
Oh, yes. And
how do we coexist and then go and work to address the white people?
You said like a whole thing right there, you know, and then after that, and then how do we go and address, you know, white supremacy and how it's embedded in white people, and then in our society, like, how do we go from, because that's so true, you know, like, I appreciate even just how you said, you know, we do appreciate and we do acknowledge, you know, the struggle and the assimilation that our, you know, ancestors had to do in order to just survive. Great. Like you said, and not so far, not so distant, and not so far ancestors, are very recent, you know, grandparents and mothers and fathers, a lot of times, you know, who really had to, you know, assimilate and just kind of take whatever was given, you know, just out of survival, you know what I mean? And how difficult it is for them. You know, a lot of times they are the people who are, you know, some of our, you know, largest and biggest resistors to our generation, who are saying, you know, no more, you know, I'm not assimilating. I'm not like, I'm this is me, and you're going to accept, like, you know, and us acknowledging, okay, you don't have to do it like me, but do it, you need to, however you do it. So, you know, we're no longer just laying down and, you know, and in the survival mode, because as time marches on, you know, different eras do different things. And so we have to continue, you know, we got to continue to push the envelope, because if we don't, we'd still be in slavery. You know what I mean? Somebody had to get our ancestors to the place where, our parents to the place where they could, you know, work in stores, you know, because before them, they couldn't, you know what I'm saying? So somebody had to keep pushing for that, you know what I mean? So now we're saying, okay, not only are we working in the stores, we want to own the stores. We want to manage the stores. We want to supervise the store. And we want these spaces to look like spaces that are healthy and supportive and welcoming to people who look like me. And so that means there's got to be some transformation in that. And they are very uncomfortable. And I'm like, I even had a conversation today. I said, you know, I get my Black brothers and sisters who are not ready, you know, for the risk, because there's risk, you know what I mean? I get it, you know, I get it, but don't just sit and be quiet. Don't fight me though. Don't make it harder for me. Like, this is for you too. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Just don't fight me, you know, but they're sometimes our biggest resistors, and it's so discouraging at times, you know, it's just, whoa.
It's hard, but I love them. I love y'all.
Oh,
y'all watch. You know, I'm not mad at anybody who has so much internalized racism, because I mean, we were born into this, so I'm not mad at them, but it is hard when they resist and get in the way and want to shelter the white people that they love. And they don't want the white people to feel uncomfortable. And I get it. However, that's not helpful to my life or
their own lives.
None of our ancestors would.
It's not even helpful to white folks. You know what I'm saying? It's not even helpful to white folks. You know, I think Issa Rae says, you know, I'm rooting for everybody Black, and I 100% agree with that. You know, I'm definitely rooting for them, love them, but I'm like, let's sit down though. But just sit down,
please.
Sit down. Just
like
sit down.
everything ain't for everybody. Like,
no.
You know what I'm saying? Like, the type of advocacy that I do is what I do. Somebody else might do the difference. So let's all bring our strengths together.
Yes.
Let's bring our passions and interests together
Yes.
and do what we do. But please don't impose on, like, that's like me trying to stop somebody from studying astrology because
Yeah.
that's what they do. And like, I'm not about to get in the way of that, or environmental justice. That's
Yep.
not my,
Yep.
but I appreciate anything that I can benefit from.
Yeah.
The work
Yes.
it did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but I'm
Yes.
sorry, my connection keeps breaking up. I don't know if I'm frozen or not, but
Nope,
just
you're
want
coming through. Yeah, thank you. You're coming through. It's getting late. It's already like 6:50. Like, how do we talk for an hour already?
I don't
You know
know.
what I mean? I got a whole list of notes, that I'm only like on the first page of, you know what I mean? I did not get to even, but it's been beautiful, you know what I mean? Got to share some good stuff, you know what I mean? I'm hoping that I can even have you come back on the show another day. Thank you so much though. Any final thoughts that you might want to share with our audience?
Well, I think I just want to encourage people to continue to just challenge themselves to learn about ourselves every day, learn about the behaviors and the mindsets and attitudes that were passed on to us that
Yes.
are harmful to others and harmful to ourselves. The negative thoughts that we even think in our own minds came from somebody else's beliefs.
Yeah.
And so we can start with that. We can really do some amazing things. And so I just want to just invite people to just, continue to grow and evolve so that we can unite and live in harmony.
Yes. You know what? Just even so, sadly, we only have 5 minutes left, so I'm not going to start a whole new conversation. But on this show, I focus mostly on DEI and anti-racism. But there's a whole other conversation to be had around, just with us as Black Americans, Black and Brown Americans specifically, but specifically Black Americans, about these ideas and these thought processes that were handed down to us, that were given to us, that we as a people don't explore, to understand, where it came from, how it's impacting us, how it's impacting our kids. One day, I want to eventually expand the show to talk more about those things, because that's another whole, conversation that could be had for years, on just, so much that was handed down to us that really, is harming our community, you know what I mean? But anyways, though, so yeah, no, I won't do that tonight. Thank you so much, Layton, for coming on. I appreciate the conversation. Those of you who, now, if people want to reach out to you, do you want to give out your contact information, or?
Yeah, folks, add me on LinkedIn, Layton Price. You can find me easily. So if you want to connect, if you want to continue to have this conversation, and if we haven't met yet, feel free to reach out and introduce yourself. Awesome. Thank you for the opportunity, Keisha. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. And thank you all for joining a meeting of Diverse Minds with Keisha Hamilton. Again, I'm Keisha Hamilton, and we will see you in 2 weeks with someone else. Bye, everybody.
Bye.